Starbase 514 lost contact with the research vessel Vico. Geordie LaForge was caught in a fire when he was about 5 years old, and Lieutenant Commander Data didn't realize his head movements were distracting. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 11, entitled Hero Worship. Story by Hilary Badar, teleplay by Joe Manosky, directed by what? Sir Patrick Stewart. This was January 25th, 1992. There's more on that in a second. Where were you? How you doing today, Sirach?
I'm doing all right. January 5th, 1992?
January 25th, 1992.
Oh, 25th. I was about to say the last one was on the 4th.
Yeah. So, everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate it. Please visit us on patreon.com/the7th-rule to support and get all kinds of goodies from us. You'll be glad you did. Yeah, January 25th, 1992. By the way, it's a beautiful day here in LA, but we had an earthquake just a few minutes ago. That was kind of interesting. It was a little quickie, no big deal. Okay, so 3 weeks in between the episodes rather than 1 week, and that's fine because of the holidays and all that. But I remembered last week we were talking about the episode 9 was in November. Episode 10 was at the beginning of January. Yeah. And then there's 3 weeks. So they had 6 weeks in between 9 and 10, 3 weeks in between 10 and 11. Like, what a strange...
That's weird.
It really is. I've never seen that before.
That is super duper weird. I don't know if that's just because they schedule, like they have the release dates that way, or if I don't know if the filming dates were like that.
I feel like
maybe the release dates were like that, but I just can't see them filming. I can't see them coming back from 6 weeks, filming 1 week, and then going back for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it feels like it was some kind of, I don't want to say a mistake, but that it wasn't planned. They were forced into this. Like maybe, the first 6 weeks was planned, but then afterwards when they got back, there were delays, and they're like, okay, well, we'll drop one episode, and then because yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Episode 9, November 16th. Episode 10, January 4th. Episode 11, January 25th. It's just weird to have that one episode in an island by itself,
Those are the release dates, though? Those are the days they were released, right?
They aired, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still guessing that the release dates were separated, were not consistent with the film dates.
Oh, totally.
So there may have definitely been a break of 6 weeks, and perhaps, for example, and I'm just going to give an example out there. Let's say that the first the episode 10 was supposed to come out on January 4th, like it was, and then this episode 11 was supposed to come out a week later on January 11th.
That's my guess, right? Too. Yeah, and then some kind of delay in post-production or something like that.
Yeah, but there could be other delays besides post-production that I'm guessing that possible. Like, for example, an earthquake happens in San Francisco that, some kind of major event, like the OJ trial or something that takes everybody's attention away from whatever.
If you want ratings, don't go on at the same time as the OJ trial, let me tell you.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's watching the OJ trial. They're not watching anything else. So I'm imagining that something like that occurred during that time where there was a need to not show episodes or something to that effect.
All right. Whatever it is, if you guys know what it is, let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, Sirach and I are just going to keep talking about it forever and reminiscing about the early 90s. Acid wash jeans, Bell
Yeah.
bottoms were starting to come back. Oh man, what a life! What a life! This kid, that was the first thing I noticed when we saw the kid. I was like, there's one child survivor with a very '90s hairdo. I was like, whoa, that is the '90s. I bet that kid was wearing. Actually, I was going to say, I bet that kid wore a turtleneck, but he actually is wearing a turtleneck in that picture.
Yeah, well, he's wearing a kid version of the of this uniform, which is actually pretty cool. I thought that was
Yeah,
a nice little
cosplay.
touch right there. Nice cosplay. Very good. Uh, and they also did it, and they made it out of a slightly different fabric, so that was cool too. Like they
Mhm.
made it look like a cosplay, which was just funny because you have actual wardrobe department, Star Trek wardrobe, making a cosplay version of the official stuff. That's pretty funny to me in itself.
Yeah. I actually, in my head canon, I imagined that he wanted to put on an actual uniform that looked like him or wanted to replicate a shirt that was, and they're like, no, because then when you're walking down the halls, people might think you're an actual officer. You can't actually be,
Yeah,
it's very different, but kind of like where people, when they go cosplay at Disneyland, they can't look too much like characters because
yeah,
then they'd be impersonating those characters. And if they act like a jerk, then Disneyland's going to get a bad rap. So the best you could do is something called Disney bounding, which is like you wear clothes that are reminiscent of a character. Like rather than wearing Snow White's blue shirt and red dress, for example, you have to just wear a generic blue shirt and red skirt to remind people of it. But anyway, so that's kind of what he did. He was data bounding, I guess is what it would be called. That was nerdy.
which gives me a stupid idea for this episode that I would have liked to that just randomly just comes into my head when you're talking, but it would have been cool to see, and that is them giving this kid an honorary badge that's not really a real badge, but it's a cosplay version of one,
Mm-hmm.
like a paper mache version or some kind of, it looks like a badge, but it's not really one, but it's just a signatory, just it's something to signify, we accept you, kind of you belong. It's
That'd be
okay.
cute.
We acknowledge your identity, what you're defining as and what you're trying to be right now. So we see you, and to give him kind of a boost. So that would have actually been a cool little thing too, just for Data to kind of say, I made you this or something to
Yeah.
that effect.
It's almost perfect. And then boonk, now it is, or something like that. That'd be cute. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked that. But going back to this episode, what we did get right off the top, I was thinking, where is Chief O'Brien? I don't know if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, because there was some ensign, and I was like, oh, transporter chief. And in capital letters, I put not O'Brien.
Me too. I was like, I was like, I'm used to O'Brien, and I'm like, O'Brien would have got the guy out. He would have got this kid out. Too bad where's he at? So I kind of missed O'Brien right off top. I'm like,
Yeah.
we have to deal with the second rate transporter guy. If we had our top guy in there, he would have figured out how to beam past the alloys or whatnot.
Yeah, that's the thing is, and obviously it's just where they write in these generic roles, and sometimes Colomini was acting in something else. He's like, oh, I'm not available. So they're like, okay, well, we'll just put in Joe McGee there, and they might even diminish the role a tiny bit. Like if it's O'Brien, he might try something heroic or whatever. But if he's not available, they're like, okay, then it's just somebody with 2 lines. Just give him 2 lines where he says, I can't do it. The whatever alloys aren't going to work, and then that's that. We move on.
Yeah,
But we missed
yeah,
him.
I missed him. He's always, missed. But I don't know. To be honest with you,
Uh-oh.
well, here's my thing. I'm just going to talk about placement of the episode, not necessarily the content, but the placement.
I thought the same.
And it just doesn't seem right to place a back-to-back child episode. We just saw Alexander in the last episode.
With kind of a similar story of like, there's this traumatized kid who needs a hero, and one of the main characters does it, but not just that, not just back to back, but also back to back. And I don't want to say like not as good episodes, but we'll call them filler episodes. Filler alert, like spoiler alert, filler alert, but
Filler alert.
not just, kind of back-to-back filler episodes with very similar feels and themes about a kid, but these are the only 2 episodes for 2.5 months. So you're waiting week to week to week. Thanksgiving passes, Christmas, Hanukkah, all the things, the New Year's Eve, right? Finally, a new episode comes. Oh, it's Alexander and Worf. Okay, fine. Next week, oh no, it's a rerun. Next week, oh no, it's a rerun. Next week, okay, new episode. Finally, same story. They're like, oh my God, what's happening to my show, my stories?
I mean, it's ridiculously bad placing. I mean, I don't mind that you have this episode. Just don't place it on the heels of the last episode. We just had a kid who needed some guidance, who felt lost, who needed one of the crew to help him out and find his way back, which is a great story. They also talked about him going to school. And then again, we have this kid who goes back to school, who's dealing with the counselor. It was almost the identical script minus Data. Data played the father in this episode, essentially, right? He was the the father figure, or the parental guidance or guardian, however you want to categorize the relationship. But it's no different than the relationship essentially that Worf has with his son. It's not close, but it's trying to be close. And so they played the same story out from one episode to the next. And I was a little bit disappointed. As a matter of fact, they played out the exact same scenario in which the kid is trapped under a beam.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
well, get this. I'm looking at the next episode.
And it's another kid trapped under a beam?
It says, Commander Riker saves a child from a shuttle accident on Organa 3 and must explain to him to follow his own path.
What's going on here? This is...
I'm just kidding. April Fools. April Fools. It doesn't say that. I actually had to type that out so I wouldn't mess it up reading it. I actually typed out this fake thing so I could look like I was reading it.
Oh, man, you had me going right now. What the hell's going on?
You're like, I am done. We're going to season 6.
That's we're going to skip past this season.
Skip intro to season 6.
Oh, we could do the last episode of this season. We'll just skip past. Yeah, what the heck's going on? Yeah, I don't know, but this is a back-to-back kid episode, trapped under a beam episode.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to use the exact same scenario where this kid is under a beam and can't be moved. Exactly.
Yeah. You know what's funny is not only it was so similar that it made me reanalyze last week's episode. In other words, when the kid was trapped under the beam and they said, well, we'll just transport him out, my first thought was, why didn't they just do that last week? We just saw that. And then I remember I was like, oh, no, wait, I think they said transporters are not functioning in the episode last week. That's why they had to go. I said, okay, fine. But I'm watching you last week's episode because this week's episode is going to point out something. You know, they're so similar that you can actually analyze last week's episode based on this week.
And last week's episode, we said they should have brought Data with them to lift up the beam.
That's true.
Which Data was in this one.
So they learned from their mistakes.
So casually.
They learned from they brought Data. They were able to beam him out from under the beam.
I mean, it was terribly. So, okay, just quick question. The last episode, who wrote that episode? Remember, it was a writing partner. I think there was a couple that here it is. I have it here in my notes somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see who could pull it up faster.
Sarah and Stuart Charno.
Stuart. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's almost as if they copied this episode and just said, instead of Worf's son, it's this kid that loves that. It's Data's son.
And then they say, like, they say, well, okay, and then a beam goes on them, and the other person's like, we already used a beam last week, and the other one's like, we don't have to change everything, just some things. We change data, we change the kid's name. That's enough. Everything else can be the same. Grow up. It's sci-fi.
Oh my God.
As long as he has shoulder pads, I'm happy. And he did.
He did, yeah. I'm surprised the kid wasn't a Klingon, like unbelievable. It was a recycled episode. So like you said, people waited the whole holidays, they waited all this time. They're in dead smack in the middle of the season, kind of, and they're thinking, all right, give me some more Star Trek. And especially coming off of, like I said, they had a really good start to this season with
bunch in a row.
Premiere, a bunch in a row. I think a bunch of two-parters, and even the Spock two-parter. It was just really great.
That was a two Spock. Right?
Yeah, two Spock, Shakur. But yeah, it was Unification Part 1 and 2. So you kind of get your palate wet this season. You're thinking, oh man, this is it. I'm in the best moment ever. And then you get this, and I'm not saying I didn't like this episode.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, coming on the heels of an identical episode, it just, I was thinking, what are we doing here? Like, somebody mix the schedules up a little bit, mix the episodes up. You can't have the same kind of episode play out. So that was a disappointment. Yeah, that was a disappointment. I just, I couldn't figure it out. Now, the mystery about what's happening to the ship and this whole, what happened to his ship and what's happening to their ship.
Yeah.
I was okay. I was okay with that. Like, I was okay with the storyline of, this kid not figuring out what, not being forthcoming with what he knows, about what happened, and they're having to kind of pry it out of him throughout the course of the episode, while also dealing with a problem that exactly consumed them. So I was okay with that storyline. As a matter of fact, the entire storyline I was okay with, because I did like seeing data being copied. It was actually,
that was fun.
It was funny. It was fun. It was fun to see, mini data go off, and and him being analyzed to that degree, essentially, by this kid, from the kid's perspective.
And what about the writers calling out Brent Spiner's head twitches, head movements? Because when he read that in the script, he probably felt kind of called out, like, oh, is that noticeable? And they're like, yeah, bro, you didn't know that. You're always like, oh, like, what's his name? Jonathan Frakes does a great impression of Brent Spiner, or of Brent Spiner's data. And that's all he does. He just does like a little head movement here and there. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
I liked it.
They're calling out his acting choices in a cute way. At this point, 5 seasons in, whatever, we know what he acts like, and it's a lot of fun. But that was really cool. I actually enjoyed, from the mouth of babes.
I mean, yeah, that was funny. It was because he does do that, those little twitches when he's moving his head, which is great because that adds to the character. But I enjoyed that whole back and forth between the boy and Data. I mean, let's not take that away. Like, I enjoyed that part. I thought it was great. Some stylistic choices that I thought I would have done differently if I was Patrick Stewart choosing to direct this episode, and particularly the scene that I thought was a little sloppy.
Oh, which one?
The scene where the boy is getting his hair combed by Data,
and he has like a piece sticking out right there.
Yeah, and if you look closely on Brent Spiner's hands, the makeup is not on his hands, on the palm of his hand.
And you could see like moisture. I saw like the wetness on it. Yeah, it was a little. Yeah.
It was sloppily done. Now, if you can see that in the camera, that his hands have no makeup on it, and that it looks like he's sweating on the hands, right? There's moisture there. Then closing in on that would be a bad move, I think. And not only that, but I just didn't like the way the whole tossing with the guy's hair, the way it looked, it didn't feel natural, didn't feel great.
No,
You know, look,
it
it
felt
wasn't
abrasive and clunky, right?
abrasive and clunky. Yes,
Yeah, I noticed
and
that too.
yeah, it just was like, and he's got two combs in one in each
Yeah,
hand.
I know. What's that? The whole thing was confusing.
It was confusing. You know what I mean? And just to basically do a back comb, which a kid could do by himself. Doesn't need to sit in a barber chair to
That's a good
comb his
point.
hair back. So if you're going to do that, my way I would have filmed it is I would have had a kind of a
Function.
I would have closed up on the whole situation, and then moved in on Data, kind of went down across the hands as he's doing it, and then just be in on the boy's face, not really seeing all that messiness of the hair
Hmm.
action, and then pull back again after the messiness is already done, then reveal the hair's back, slick back, and then see, hey, but he did it in a oneer, and it was it just looked a little sloppy. He wanted to see the mirror in the background, and it just didn't look necessarily. I would have had more movement on that camera. It was very
Yep.
stagnant.
Plus, then it gives the kid a good moment. You give him a little bit of a close up, because that
Hmm.
was, they gave him some good moments. So zoom in on him. And I didn't think that the kid was a particularly bad actor. Like, I don't think a close
No,
up would have hurt the episode. Sometimes a close up on a kid, you're just like, oh, not that great. Child actors are tough. Some are good, some are bad, just like animals. Like they say, don't work with kids and animals. Because you never know what you're going to get, especially back in the day. But this kid seemed fine. He did. He actually had a couple moments that I actually really liked. Like one was when at the very end when he's like, "Oh, how you doing, Data?" And Data says, "I'm functioning within established parameters." And Data says, "How are you, little Timmy?" And the kid says, "I miss my parents." I was like, "Oh, that was good." It was a good line because I wasn't expecting it, and it was
hmm
well delivered, and it actually made me react outward. I actually said, "Ah," that was really good.
yeah.
And a couple other moments where the kid would start to act like a kid, but then switch back into being, an android or whatever. Like, I thought he did a great job, to be honest. I thought he was really good.
I thought he was good too. There was also a moment they were eating the ice cream, and he was like, "Yeah, but how does it taste? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is
Hmm.
it good? Like, I'm not asking for the
Sack rides.
the polysaccharides and stuff. He was like,
Yeah.
just he did like the kid stuff. It was like, oh, but I'm just asking you, how does it taste? Like, is it good?
Hmm.
I thought that was a good delivery. I also thought he had a great delivery towards the end, where he had to when he kind of broke down and explained that he felt guilty for pressing the button. That the way he told that story was believable to me. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I thought this kid was good. I thought he held his own, especially when he started to do the robotic stuff and become Data. Like, his responses were great. His delivery, it looked like he studied Data for a second to be able to deliver some of those lines the way he did.
Totally. He was doing an impression of Data.
He was doing it
I
Data.
mean, it was pretty clear that's what he was doing, and he was doing it well. And it makes me wonder, like, how much film did he watch of Data to do that? Or was he already a Star Trek fan? Because that was an impression of Data. That wasn't him just being a robot and then Brent giving him a couple hints of like, oh, I do this. No, that kid was doing an impression of Data. Somebody
And it
that's
was great.
clearly he watched him for a while.
And it was great. And the other moment I liked when he delivered is when he was in the mess hall with Troy, and that ice cream walks by,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's like, I'm an android. We don't eat. And then he saw the food. He's like, but we do like to taste things.
Yeah. However, I wouldn't mind sampling the local cuisine real quick, just for science. So, speaking of science, everybody, we got to take a quick break, but we will be right back. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule.